Good evening. Welcome to the Who's Left Podcast, a show about Indiana politics, history, and culture from an unapologetically leftist perspective. My name is Scott Aaron Rogers, and I'm broadcasting from Bloomington. My guest this evening is a Democrat running for a seat in the U.S. House of Representatives from Indiana's sprawling 4th Congressional District. Quoting from his website, John Whetstone was born and raised in Crawfordsville, where he learned the values of hard work, resilience, and community at an early age. He lost his father while still a student at Southmont High School, and that experience gave him a deep appreciation for family, perseverance, and the importance of a strong community support system. After graduating in 2015, he pursued a career in business management, gaining firsthand experience in leadership, problem solving, and understanding the pressures small businesses face every day. Along the way, he took a break to travel the country, competing professionally in Magic the Gathering, which is something I did not know one could do. I'm interested to hear about that. When the COVID-19 pandemic disrupted lives and livelihoods across Indiana, he returned home to Crawfordsville and refocused on serving his community, re-entering business management, and eventually opening his own small business. Tonight's conversation will focus on John's background, his reasons for seeking this position, his policy priorities should he make it to Washington, and why he thinks he's the best choice to represent Democrats in a crowded primary field. Before we get there, you know the routine. This is an independent media project. We don't paywall content. We don't have billionaire benefactors. Only individuals like you keep this thing going. It is a foundational principle of Who's Left and the Progressive Indiana Network that we refuse to hide important information behind paywalls in the middle of a political crisis, even to our financial detriment. So please, if you find value in this work, go to progressiveindiana.net and subscribe at the paid level. It is only $5 a month or $50 a year to help us build the infrastructure that will pop the right-wing media bubble in this state. And while a paid subscription is the best way to help grow and sustain this project, you can help in other ways by liking and sharing on social media, commenting, leaving reviews, providing feedback, forwarding our content to your people. You get us when you can. Mostly, we just want you here in this community of Hoosiers dedicated to making this state and its government work for all of us, not just the elite few. Please join us. You can follow me on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Threads at whosleft.us, and on Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube at Who's Left. Again, that is HOOS Left. Progressive Indiana Network's handle is the full spelled out name on most sites, but on Blue Sky and TikTok, it's PIN Indiana. Please help us grow with a follow wherever you're at and tell the others. Let's build a radically democratic Indiana together. And now, let's welcome our guest this evening, John Whetstone. John, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me tonight. I'm glad to be here, and I'm excited there was an open spot suddenly.
Hey, I'm really glad we got a chance to work this thing out. I had been meaning to get you in here, and that schedule really filled up in the months leading into the primary. But
filled up for me too. I'm glad it worked. Glad it worked out for both of us.
So, listen, I like to begin these things with a segment I call the Easy Dubs, the Easy W's of journalism, the who, what, when, where, and obviously the what is this election season we are in the middle of. Obviously, early voting is already going on. The primary is May 5th. That is election day. That is our when. More interesting, however, are the where and the who. So first, John, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So you read my bio, which does a pretty good job describing where I've been in life. But I did grow up pretty poor in a trailer park, surrounded by people with different backgrounds. We had retirees living on fixed income. We had people restarting lives through bankruptcy because of medical debt. They had divorce. People getting out of broken jail system. So I have a very diverse background I've had from an early age. That doesn't seem like a lot of our politicians in Washington have that kind of perspective. So that's a little bit about the background. There's just met so many people, and they all had similar needs, which is we don't make enough money in our area. Our healthcare in rural America is destroyed, things like that. So not to jump the gun a little bit on our reasoning.
No, absolutely. That'll and those will come up. The healthcare situation, the wage situation, the unfairness of our rigged system is something that we will talk about throughout. But first, let's talk about the 4th a little bit.
Yeah.
This is a large, spread out rural district. Is Lafayette the biggest city in your district?
I believe so. We also have like Brownsburg, Avon. They're pretty populated as well, but I think West Lafayette's the biggest.
Sort of the west suburbs of Indianapolis, and this district goes down to Martinsville in south central Indiana, which is just north of where I'm at, all the way up to the Calumet region there. What is that? Newton and
Jasper County, White County.
That's the one I was looking for. Yeah, which are on Central Time still, I believe,
some
and
areas,
part of the Chicago market, and butting up against the 1st district there. So
I'm pretty fortunate coming from Crawfordsville. To get to Martinsville is about an hour and a half for me. To get up north to the northern reaches is about 2 hours for me. So I'm pretty central. Which it's hard for some of the candidates coming from super far south or super far north. They have to drive 3+ hours to get places. Our district's massive.
You've been in this race for months. You started exploring running for Congress last summer, I believe. So you've been out there traveling far and wide, meeting people. What is an interesting thing about your district that folks might not know?
An interesting thing. I don't know if it's a thing. It's more the people. No matter the town I go to, no matter the size, people are there with kindness. And even if we're not agreeing politically, there's a kindness there that I don't think you get everywhere in Indiana. And it's pretty uniform across the district. In my experiences, I can always find a friend everywhere I'm going.
sort of peak Hoosier hospitality.
Yeah, and it's genuine as well. It's not. There's no charade there. It's genuine.
None of that. Oh well, bless your heart.
Yeah.
So, we got the easy ones out of the way, the easy dubs, the who, what, when, where. The more interesting W question, of course, is the why. And you've sort of alluded to it a little bit, like why you got into this race, some of your early experiences that shaped you. But, why now? Why Congress? Why, John?
Yeah, so as a young person in politics, you can imagine every room I'm in, I'm usually one of the youngest people in the room. It's not a great feeling. It makes me not feel heard, and I'm in the room. So when I'm out talking to people, I was originally eyeing a state house run, but I was out talking to people, the people who were getting ready to volunteer in my campaign, the ones who were promising they were going to donate. They're tired of being locked out of politics, being under 30. They feel like they have no voice, things like that. So when I was looking at who was on the ticket and meeting people in the early days, there was no young progressive at that time, no Dem Soc, anyone. So I happily filling the role to try to give a voice to my generation as well as help people around our district.
And it's in a way, Congress is maybe an easier seat to run for, kind of. I mean, I know obviously the requirements to the resources necessary to do so are much more, are much greater that you need to run for a seat so prominent and in a district so big, just the resources to get back and forth to the different places. But some of those state house seats around here are just so badly gerrymandered. There's like no shot, and it's got to be frustrating for the folks, and they're doing the Lord's work. The people who do go out there and put their name on that ballot and run in those seats where you've really got the deck stacked against you.
Oh yeah,
Our districts are gerrymandered, but not nearly as bad, I don't think, as the state districts, or nearly as bad as they could be, as we saw in December.
Right. Yeah. So I'm the Montgomery County Democratic Secretary, and we have, I think, 4 or 5 House districts that touch into our county, and just trying to coordinate with those candidates and talk to them. Like, I know you only have 2 precincts in our county, but can you come here to this meeting? Can you drive an hour and a half for this meeting for 2 precincts? So it's hard. And you're right. They have gerrymandered it a lot. And back in, was that November? It's been a while now when they were making the push in the state house.
The vote was in December, toward the beginning of December. Yeah, they wasted the first couple weeks of session. They started the state house session early to do that, and that ate into some of the valuable time they could have been spending to make Hoosiers' lives better at the beginning of the year. But
I was there protesting and yelling. I wasn't really looking at the calendar.
That was an experience, to be sure, and heartening in a way that we do, for all the animosity and all the partisanship in our state, there are a lot of Republicans who still have a conscience and still have a red line that they will not cross when it comes to that guy. So
yeah.
Let's talk about some of your life experiences that shaped you, that I really gathered from your website and from just seeing some of the things you've been talking about online, that you are very much a helper. You were shaped by some loss early in life, shaped by growing up with little financial resources, and that those things shaped you into the man you are today, and led you to run for a seat to lift people up, to improve others' station in life.
Yeah, so some of my earliest experiences was a lot involving my dad. He's very influential in my life. He's no longer here. But our family had a lot of medical debt, and my dad would work tons of hours at a factory, and he had a part-time job doing maintenance. He even moved mobile homes. If there was demand, he would find the time in the day to do it. And all this boiled down to him always being exhausted, running himself down. He would get sick. So we get farther into debt, and we know that's not how it's supposed to work. You're supposed to be rewarded for hard work. And a lot of this was pre-Affordable Care Act. So a lot of his medicine he needed wasn't covered because it was considered pre-existing. So I remember when that passed, how important it was for our family, because he could actually get things like insulin and a couple other medicines he really needed. And that helped our family considerably. But, it's been 15 years now, if my math's right, close to there. We need to advance more. We can't say we're done. Like, the government's never done improving. So we need to be advancing, expanding our healthcare, so people aren't working themselves to death just to try to stay afloat. Some other things he taught me, besides the classic Hoosier things like fishing and hunting, that's a big way we supplemented our food bill. Same for growing a garden. He taught me the value in, if a neighbor asks for help, you help them. It doesn't matter that my neighbors were the type of people that fly like Trump flags and stuff. That was after he was gone. But we always help them. If they needed food, they're human. They deserve to be able to eat. We're going to do our best to help them. So I got to learn that. And then my amazing spouse, very big into mutual aid, has gotten me into that recently, which I didn't know what I was doing as a child with my family was considered mutual aid. So it's cool to come full circle, have a title, like a title for it, and just be like, oh, well, that's what I've been doing my whole life. This is so cool. And then continue to do it.
Yeah. It turns out like just taking care of each other and taking care of our neighbors is in its way a form of radical activism. Mm-hmm. I want to start our 3 big things section that we like to do around here on healthcare, because you talked about it, and the irony of having to work yourself ragged to get to work out of medical debt, and in the process of doing so, your father, made himself sicker, rang up more medical debt. We're the only industrialized country in the world that does things this way. what the hell is going on and how are we going to dig ourselves out of it?
A big part of it's going to be getting big money out of politics. We got to start there. None of us have as much money as our media companies, our large companies like Amazon and Walmart as well. But it goes down to our insurance companies. We don't have that kind of money to fight, so we need to remove them from politics so we can actually have a discussion to start removing them from removing them from the ecosystem. I'm a firm believer a dollar shouldn't come between you and healthcare, as amongst a few other things. But
I think that is another way of saying healthcare is a human right.
Very much so. Healthcare is a human right, food and water as well. If I want to tag those on there too.
Let's let's dig into the how we fix our medical system here. Now you say you're a Medicare for all guy. That could mean multiple things. There are different models of Medicare for all. I think I saw that the bill that Bernie Sanders proposed, for example, that would eliminate private insurance, sort of emulates the Canadian model, a single payer national health plan. Though even Sanders' bill would not enroll everybody in a single health plan. The VA would still exist. The Indian Health Service would still exist. And then you have, on the other hand, like this hybrid model where private insurance plans that comport with certain federal regulations would still exist. This sort of builds on the Medicare Advantage situation that we have now. I want to say like a third of all Medicare beneficiaries are enrolled in a privately managed plan. Where are you on that? Are we getting rid of health insurance companies, private insurance entirely, or are we building some sort of hybrid model?
So, in short, I don't think we should have insurance companies being able to dictate whether we have healthcare or not. So I'm much more in line with the Sanders model. I don't think any particular Medicare for all is necessarily right, because again, we're always improving, we're always finding, everything we do, there's always a flaw that we can improve. So I don't want to say the Sanders model is the perfect one. It's one that I support, but I don't think there's room for insurance companies in the conversation anymore. Possibly for supplemental if you want additional coverage of some kind, but that is by the most I would like to see them be involved.
And where do like dental and vision fit in? I've always found it weird that like those are separate things, as if your eyes and your ears are not part of your body.
Yeah, that's capitalism doing its thing, right? So they're trying to sell you different things, so it should be the same service. I think, they should be covered. As an adult, I just now got health insurance for my first time in my adult life. So I'm super excited to start going to the doctor and stuff. I also just recently got dental and eye insurance, like eye coverage. So I'm excited for that. And I shouldn't have to be almost 30 to hit that benchmark and be excited to go to the dentist and excited to go get a new pair of eyeglasses. It should be a human right that's just covered. We're the richest country in the world, history. We should be able to cover if you have a cavity or you need a pair of glasses.
And countries with far less resources than us seem to have figured this out. So is it that we're wasting all of our money on things like war, or is it specifically money in politics, keeping up these artificial gates, protecting their turf? It is very much like a mafia style situation that we have going on with some of these large corporations.
It really is. And you touched on a couple of points. Yeah, it's the gatekeeping by the insurance companies trying to harvest money off of us. Honestly, it's also the misprioritizing our money. Like the president's asking for $1.5 trillion for the military budget coming up. That we could do so much good in our world with that kind of money, yet we're giving the defense industry more money for bombs to attack Iran and kill innocent people. So it's definitely just a misprioritizing of our money, and it's the politicians who are in power right now showing you they don't care about you and your family. They care about giving someone they met a couple of times tons of money to kill more people. It's ridiculous.
I guess let me play devil's advocate
Yeah.
and bring up some criticisms that folks would have of a single payer Medicare for all system. They say, the folks on the right, that well, number one, you can't make doctors provide service against their will. That's freedom, and likewise, innovation, right? That we lead the world in medical innovation here with our for-profit system, and it incentivizes companies and the drug companies and the insurance companies and whoever else has a private stake in the healthcare industry to innovate, and that is better for health outcomes. What do you say to that?
So people like to act like capitalism's the best thing in the world, but when you try to regulate it in the slightest, they act like it's the most fragile thing in the world. So these companies that make our medicines, there's plenty of room for profit. They're taking way too much. So we can scale that back. We can regulate how much they can charge us for prescriptions, things like that, without their whole ecosystem crumbling. Because I'm sorry, if there's $1 to be made, capitalism says someone's going to try to do it. So if they're saying they're not good enough at capitalism to keep on functioning because they don't get to make 2,000, 3,000% profit margins, someone's going to be good at capitalism and be willing to do it for 20, 30%,
Let's talk about the insurance companies themselves. Now, I think they are a cancer on the entire healthcare system, and they don't actually provide anything of value. It is really just like a toll booth where they hold you at gunpoint and say you're going to pay, or you don't get the services that you need to live. But yet they do employ a lot of people. If private medical insurance goes away, what happens to all the folks that are working for those companies?
A large portion can be absorbed into the government just administering the healthcare. So I feel like it's a pretty easy transition for most people. I don't have job numbers. So I can't tell you, 20% is going to ultimately have to find new work. I can't tell you that number. But a large portion would still be employed in similar administrative roles through the government or through the healthcare systems they're already working in. They just might not be working for places like Anthem or Blue Cross,
And well, then of course the folks would say, "Oh, you're growing the size of government, and who's gonna pay for all that?" I suspect we're gonna get to that part.
Yeah, we will get to that part. Do you want to segue here, or do you want to? It's gonna be. We need to actually hold the 1% accountable, make them pay their fair share. We need companies, back to that capitalism, them acting like it's fragile part. They need to pay their fair share too. And then we also get collective bargaining powers with 300 million strong covered base. We get to basically dictate terms a lot easier than lower prescription drug cost and cost of procedures and things like that.
And I guess just sticking on healthcare here, how do we? Because it should sell itself. We're talking about number one, places that have universal healthcare have better healthcare outcomes than we do. They live longer. They're in better health during the course of their normal lives. They suffer from less chronic disease, and it's cheaper to treat things up front, preventative care, than it is to take care of things that compound in the end. And furthermore, it's cheaper to pay, I don't know, whatever your number is in taxes, than it is to pay that money to the private health insurance companies. The government doesn't need to make a profit on the services that they're providing. They don't have some CEO that needs to buy his 6th yacht.
And they're not beholden to shareholders. The American people would be the shareholders in this. So they would be beholden to all of us, not just a select few who have extra money to buy at the stock market.
I guess where is the resistance coming from? Why is it just this American aversion to taxation across the board? Even though, listen, your tax bill would be less than your insurance bill by like a lot. Why? Like, just get it. Why won't you just get it?
So from my perspective out campaigning, again, I've been doing this for almost 7 months now. Most people I run into, no matter their side of the political spectrum, they are for a better healthcare system. They might be scared of the Medicare for all words, but they are wanting and they are needing a better system. So I do believe this is a top-down issue more than a left-right issue. So I think the pressure is coming from those at the top and the insurance companies to keep our system as it is.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and go there then, because that is one of your other 3 pillars of your campaign is, the economic fairness, let's call it. A couple of the things that you focus on your website currently are, the corporate tax rate for sure, and tax justice there, as well as a wealth tax on multimillionaires and billionaires. And those are the folks who are currently benefiting from our private healthcare system.
So I don't want to jump right into the wealth tax. That's another one that scares people. I've talked to people and it scares them, but at the end of the day, you have to look at it.
Are any of them multimillionaires and billionaires?
Huh?
Are any of them multimillionaires and billionaires?
Not to my knowledge. And so they see a little bit more. Everyone, it's the American dream. You're going to work hard one day and you're going to be at the top, right? And I don't want to eliminate that. My whole thing is bringing the American dream back into reality for us. But we are already wealth taxed. Most people, their home is their biggest asset in life. It's their biggest piece of wealth, and we pay property taxes on it. So why should a billionaire not pay a wealth tax as well? That's somewhat meaningful. I'm asking for 1% or 2% for their money over $10, $11 million. They can afford that, but like with our property taxes, that's a huge chunk of our wealth that we're paying every year.
I guess if we have to pay property taxes, then the folks who have the most property, in fact, the folks who have like all of the property, should be paying some sort of property taxes.
Yeah, they should be paying their property taxes. They should be paying a wealth tax. Just doing a wealth tax in line with the one that Senator Warren's proposed, it'll raise a couple $1 trillion over 10 years that we can invest in things like our healthcare. And this thing I forgot to mention about healthcare, I'm a big advocate for rural transit expansion in our healthcare system, and a lot of that can be funded through the wealth tax as well. So we can make sure we can get patients from rural areas to bigger cities for more specialized care.
Yeah, because right now, boy, you see, and I'm sure this is a problem in your district, which is so large and rural and spread out, is that rural hospitals are either closing or in danger of closing, and the ones that are staying open are reducing services. I've seen lots of dozens of labor and delivery departments across the state have closed in the last handful of years. And it's because the free market doesn't serve rural areas particularly well, because the market demands efficiency. The market wants efficiency, and if you want to be in rural areas, and I think we do, we want to have folks that have that way of life, and if you choose to live in rural areas, you should still be able to access public services, but the government is going to have to get involved there where the market just will not serve small populations, dispersed populations. And it's another one of those things. How do you get the people who are seemingly most against government intervention to realize that government intervention will help them?
It's just talking to them face to face and just having a conversation that evolves around, let's remove the government from the talk and just talk about what are your needs in life. And that's how our campaign's been approaching it. We just have honest conversations of what do you need in life, and let's try to find a solution. And most of them, they want these kind of things. They're just scared of the government. They're scared of the words that we use to define what we're talking about, being rural transit, Medicare for all. So it's just trying to break down those barriers and show them we can have a better life. It doesn't have to be scary. You don't have to be scared of the buzzwords that you see online.
So much of the anti-government rhetoric is branding, right? The conservatives, the far right, have spent, I don't know, at least 100 years in this country decrying any form of government as communism, when really government at its best is just mutual aid at scale, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Like, we look at it with our programs like SNAP, where it's back to what I was talking about as a kid. A neighbor needed food. We would go into the cupboard, we canned all of our own vegetables, get out vegetables, things like that for them. It's the same concept. Your neighbor needs help. You're going to help your neighbor. You just paying the government a little bit so they can manage it for you because you're busy and don't have time necessarily.
Yeah, it's all of us. Hey, we get together. We're going to pool our resources. We're going to do this thing to lift each other up. Well, you multiply that by a couple 100 million people, and you can do all sorts of amazing things.
And I love that you mentioned it's branding. I love talking about how, as a Democratic Party, we lose at marketing all the time. We are bad at marketing ourselves, our ideas. We right now, though, a lot of people are waking up to the fact that the conservative party, the Republicans and the far right, they aren't a small government party. They are a military first, a fascist state first kind of party, where we're investing $85 billion into ICE, and they're constantly trampling rights in our country and human rights. And then we're also investing millions of dollars into flock cameras and surveillance state equipment. So my campaign is a lot of leftists, a lot of Democratic Socialists, Democrats, but also a lot of libertarians and Republicans who see the writing on the wall and go, this is not okay. We need to put the focus back onto people and not with this police state, not these large companies. So it's been a very nice experience with my campaign staff, just how diverse we are, coming from different ways.
So I want to sort of come back to the economic justice portion of your platform, and we talked about the wealth tax some, and I don't know what number exactly you're settling on, like what percentage above what threshold will bring in the kind of money we need to without spooking too many people.
Yeah, so I'm it's we constantly are learning and growing. The numbers fluctuate a little bit, but I'm a big fan of 1% for anything over 10 million, and then 2% once we reach $1 billion, and then we can talk about going up from there. Again, things happen in increments. No system's perfect. I would like to get a start, see where we're at, and adjust from there. Hopefully a little higher. I don't want to adjust that number lower, but a little higher. But I don't want to jump the gun and go, we're going to do 10% at 10 million and 15% at $1 billion. I don't want to jump the gun on that. I just want to keep it small, reasonable, and then increment from there.
Well, and really things have gotten so out of proportion over the last 50 years. You might have to start big and then tweak it down.
I could see the argument for that, for sure.
To get things back to some sort of normalcy. Listen, MAGA, right? Make America Great Again. I think they like to invoke the post-war era, the 50s and 60s, when the American dream was possible, where you could support a family on a single income, where labor protections were strong. Well, okay, how did we pay for that? We paid for that with incredibly high marginal tax rates. I mean, I believe the top percentage for high earners during the Eisenhower administration was like 91% above a certain threshold. Now that's income, that's not wealth, but it's like, well, if we had kept that up the whole time, we wouldn't have people who were so exorbitantly wealthy now that we need to invoke things like a wealth tax.
Right. And it's very unfortunate just because we've all had a hand in helping the system crumble to this point. So it's going to take us all together to get it fixed. And so it's just we need to fix the the corporate tax rate. We made it permanent at like 23% in the One Big Beautiful bill. That's incredibly low. We need to start raising it. And I do support the exit taxes that you can put on companies. So if they try to flee the country so they can avoid their taxes, they're going to be paying a big chunk. And again, it's capitalism. Someone will fill that role, and we'll have those systems still. If they want to leave, whatever. Someone's going to fill the role and want to do it.
And, that's something Biden was doing, was working with other countries to achieve some sort of global minimum tax on these corporations. So you can't just race to the bottom and go find your tax haven place,
Right.
where you can, like the Cayman Islands or whatever, where you don't have to pay any taxes like that. That doesn't serve anybody well. I guess I wanted to come back to the corporate tax rate specifically, since you mentioned it, and you said that the big stupid bill lowered it to 21%, which is incredibly low. And then there's still a bunch of loopholes, like no corporation's paying that much. Before that, it was 35%. I want to say Biden proposed rolling it back to 28% when he was in office. If you look back in that the golden era, right, the top corporate rate was over 50% through much of the 50s. Just below that through much of the 60s and the 70s, before old Ron Reagan started taking a hatchet to the corporate tax rate, and he got it down to that 35% sort of area, where it stayed for quite a while until Trump cut it much lower. You talk about rolling back the corporate tax cuts. How far are we rolling them back?
So again, all numbers are flexible. My first target's to 35%. But like, we can look at companies like, I like to talk about Dollar General. A lot of us around the district, that's our grocery store. So I love talking about it. They pay around $10 an hour, yet they've profited a couple billion a year, and their CEO makes millions. That's the perfect example of a company that can afford to pay a higher share of taxes. Because they're forcing their employees to have such low wages, a lot of their employees need assistance. And so we're subsidizing their company, and they're not paying for it. So we need to make it fair.
I'm glad you brought up the paltry wages that some of these corporations pay, because that's sort of the other side of this affordability coin, right? You have the corporate concentration; they can charge whatever they want, and buy our politicians and give themselves favorable tax codes and whatnot. We also need, in addition to taxing them, to lifting folks, individuals up and putting more money in people's pockets. The minimum wage has been stuck at $7.25 in this country since 2009. It's a disgrace. You have a proposal, I believe, to raise the minimum wage to $17.25. Is that right? How'd you settle on that number?
So looking around the district, it's, our district's huge. There's a lot of different cities and everything, but roughly for 30% of your income to be your apartment cost, it's going to be about $17.24 an hour. So I rounded it to $17.25, make it a clean number. But with housing costs and it being 30%, that's roughly where we're landing. So that way, if you work a full-time job, you should be able to afford a place to live without worry. And that's where I wanted to start with my choice of $17.25. I also want to tie it to inflation. That's a small little.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, that's a big thing right there, because the problem is that we're at the 725. We've been stuck there for 15 plus years now.
I've never, as a working person, never had a minimum wage increase in my life.
Wow. Yeah. That's insane. And. Well, okay. Now the right would say, well, let's see. Look, now the prevailing minimum wage is probably $10 to $12 an hour right now, and like no one's actually paying $7.25. See, it's not even doing anything. We don't need a minimum wage.
But it raises the floor of labor and raises the value of labor just by raising it. Because we see it's at $7.25 an hour now. Let's go back to our grocery stores being Dollar General. They can afford more. They're paying $10 an hour because they can justify pointing at the small number and going, see, we're beating that. But in reality, they're not doing anything meaningful with that extra $2.75 an hour.
We brought up the sort of the halcyon days that the MAGA folks like to look back on as if everything was hunky dory in the 50s and 60s. And, in 1968, the minimum wage was $1.60 an hour. Now, that seems like nothing at this time, but at that point, that was like the peak purchasing power for the minimum wage. That is about $15 in a straight inflation adjustment to, our current dollars. Now, if the minimum wage had kept up with productivity, it would be, I don't know, in the 20s, pushing 30, perhaps. I think I've seen that to afford a 2-bedroom apartment in Indiana, you need to make $22 an hour anywhere.
My number is for a 1-bedroom.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, but my figure was if it's one person, 1 bedroom. That's how I got that number, $17.25. Just to clarify a little bit.
Oh no, that's good. It's like, and it's not just like you're pulling a number out of a hat. That's like seems like there's like a reason that you settled on that number specifically, and would tie it to the rate of inflation automatically adjusted, so we don't have to keep going back and having this fight all the time.
Right. And as a small business owner, I can kind of plan for my yearly raises that way, and so it just makes sense. So I'm not every year just blindsided with we're going up 50 cents this year at random, because that's going to cause a little inflation. I can bake it into my prices, make it into the plan, and just go from there.
I'm glad you brought up the small business owner perspective on the minimum wage, because that's folks always they are afraid of raising the minimum wage. They say, I can't afford to pay that. It's going to bankrupt us if we have to raise the wage floor for all of our employees. How do you respond to another small business owner who has that concern?
I respond with, think about the times we've had stimulus money come in. People spend it at small businesses. First, they go with their priorities. They catch up on their bills. They catch up on groceries, things like that. But anything extra then goes to our small businesses, and it boosts our economy. The stores I was managing, we were able to grow. Like 3 years of expansion we got done in 6 months around COVID time, just because there was so much stimulus money going through. So it's good for small business because there's more cash flow. And part of my plan is doing a stepped up. So large corporations, people with more than 20 employees, would be raising their minimum wage first. And then a few months later, small businesses would raise to match. That way, there's a little bit of time for money to filter into the local small economy and get those a little boosted before they have to raise to match.
And you nailed it right there when you're talking about that money percolating through the economy. I remember I was in management the last time that we had a raise in the minimum wage, and my boss, the owner, was of course against it, very concerned that, oh my God, we're going to go broke. This is hospitality, restaurant industry. If we have to give all of our employees a raise, well, it turns out after the increase went into effect, the next year we had a significantly better year than we did the year before. It's because, our employees got a raise. So did everybody else in town. And now listen, the Bloomington market's kind of skewed, but I still think the pattern holds, is that if everybody in town gets a raise, if the wage floor is raised, and it's not just for the people at the lower end of the spectrum, it's like, well, then the middle wages are going to go up, and the upper wages are also going to go up by about an equal.
Raising the minimum wage raises the value of all labor. It really does.
And so then you've got people with money to spend at your small business.
Yep. And that way, we can then go, we can get more employees, we can expand our inventory, we can expand wages. So it's just good for the local economy. And the more small business owners I talk to and try to put it in perspective, there's a study, I always forget who did it. It was out in Pennsylvania and New Jersey in the 90s, where one of them raised their minimum wage and the other didn't, and it showed that it actually helped the economy. They expanded hiring, things like that. So
and we've even seen it on like local levels, right? Like there's, I believe, before California raised their minimum wage, Los Angeles did, or San Francisco did. You double check me on what the localities were, but everybody was afraid. All these businesses are going to close. They're going to move to the next town over, and where they can pay less wages. No, it turns out it didn't actually work that way. They did just as well, if not better, with the raised minimum wage.
Another thing I hear as pushback, I'll play my own devil's advocate here because I want to get rid of this one. People will be like, well, they'll cut jobs. You hear that all the time. Like they'll lower their cost of labor by getting rid of workers. I'm sorry. Every Dollar General I've ever been in, they do not staff enough employees as is. There's no more to trim. That's not an option for them. They're running at peak efficiency if they can. They're not going to have extra employees to cut.
Yeah. They're you go in one of those places. There's like one person, and the whole store is a damn mess because they can't keep up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're a particularly bad actor in this space, and they do really exploit. They need to get roughed up a little bit because they do exploit these towns where they're the only game in town in a lot of these places, and that's monopoly, and monopolies are a bad thing.
Oh yeah, I don't know. You said you're from Bloomington, so I assume you have like actual grocery stores around. But I don't know if you've ever just went to Dollar General week to week to buy groceries. It's considerably more expensive than going to a normal grocery store. And like you said, by design, they have monopoly.
And you don't get fresh food. The quality is, it's processed stuff, shelf stable stuff. I want to know how RFK Jr. and his Maha folks reconcile that with the Republican donor base who would love if Dollar General were our only option for shopping, it seems. So John, we got maybe about a little more than 10 minutes here, and I guess I want to take this time to talk about the dynamics in this race specifically. Sure. Like we said, the early voting is open. We got about 3 weeks left to primary election day.
We do.
And there are, I want to say, it was as high as 9, and I think we're down to 7 folks in this race now.
Yes, I want to give a shout out to my friend Thomas Hall Jr. He recently backed out and endorsed me and joined my campaign team, bringing an awesome perspective as another young person, a young father, family man, union man. Like, super excited for him to be on the team. He's really good at data because, you can never have too much of it as a campaign. So I just want to give him a shout out because I really appreciate it. And I'm excited to be working with him.
So, still a lot of folks. We had just hosted a debate here on Progressive Indiana Network this past Saturday. We had a stage full. The screen was packed with candidates. What makes you stand out? Why in a field of 7? Some folks have a lot of experience in politics. Some folks have military experience. You've got a diverse range of candidates in this primary, which is listen, it's good to have options, especially as a Democrat in Indiana, where we're used to not having a whole lot of any. But now it's like a bounty of choices. Why is John Whetstone the person to choose if you're a Democrat in the 4th district? Why can you win in November and unseat the fossil Jim Baird, or if he loses his primary, Craig Haggard will be there waiting?
It goes kind of back to my campaign team structure, where we have a diverse base just in our campaign structure, because our message is one that goes it's about the top down, not the left right. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to be towing with fascism at all, but it's the message of affordability and being honest about it. I don't like using the terms kitchen table issues because it's a survivability issue at this point for a lot of people, and just being honest with that and being genuine, because I'm from we're all from the same places, but I'm genuinely, growing up in a trailer park, like scrapping every dollar we could to open our own small business. Like, we lived in that trailer park with no heat and no water for months until we could open our own small business. So I understand the life of struggle, and it makes these conversations so much easier because it's not coming from a place where it seems like I'm just using it for a talking point. It's genuine, like, I've lived it and I care, and people can tell when you're having that conversation. And that's how we're kind of breaking party lines right now, is when you go into a room full of Republicans and just talk to them about NASCAR, all of a sudden you're a person with them, and they're going to listen, like they're listening more about healthcare and wages. It's really something to see. It's probably my biggest superpower, I think, out of the seven of us is that.
Is you are a regular person who knows the struggle, and that is a thing we definitely don't have enough of in politics, and we certainly don't have enough of in Washington. You know, I want to say the average net worth of your average congressperson is, you know, well north of $1 million. Like, you got somebody like Jefferson Shreve right here in Indiana in the 6th district is pushing $1 billion himself.
Did not realize that. Wow.
Okay. Yeah. Well, self-storage maven. That's where he made all his money, in storage units. Because the top of the income scale has too much crap, and they need somewhere to put it. And then the rest of us are struggling to get by.
Wow. Okay.
And that really goes to show that it is a top-down issue, and the folks that we've been talking about with the corporate tax, right, with the wealth tax, those are also the people, unfortunately, who are in Congress or who own congressmen and are buying the government and buying favorable terms for their tax bill or whatnot.
And that's why it's important to have a young progressive in Congress who's lived the life I've lived, because I love my life, and I love most things, like almost everything about it. I'm not going to be swayed. I'm also used to telling people no and upsetting people. Like, you don't jump into a race like this and everyone is happy in your district. You have to tell some people, no, I'm going to do this. Like, I'm sorry you don't agree. So it's all things I'm used to at this point.
John, just a few minutes left here. What did we miss? I didn't get to talk to you about Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, we can talk about that
professionally. I didn't even know that was an option.
Yeah, so I call myself a professional Magic Gathering player. I never made the Pro Tour, but at one time my income was entirely from tournament winnings, coaching people. At the time, I charged, I think, $17.50 an hour to teach people how to be better at the game. And then, I just traveled the country every weekend and played cards and got to see a lot of diverse ways of life, experience a lot of cool things and what different areas did better than others, and bring it back to my town to try to bring a little bit of the good back. It was great. COVID unfortunately ended it, though. Couldn't really go do it anymore.
That's sad. Does the tournament not exist anymore, or did that just knock you out of the tournament?
It does. It still exists. I'll go play occasionally. I think I went to Atlanta a couple months ago, but it's not where my priorities in life are anymore. My priorities are making sure my neighbors can eat and my neighbors can pay their bills. So that's what I'm all in on right now.
If I was smarter about all the nuances of Magic the Gathering, I would make a reference about like casting some sort of wealth tax spell or something along those lines.
Famous card balance. You even up on all the resources.
There it is. That's the through line. So, John, just a couple minutes here. Why don't you let folks know where they can find out more information about you, how they can donate, how they can volunteer, and where they can connect with you online?
Awesome. So we're most active on our Facebook, John Whetstone for Congress. Then you can follow us along on our website, whetstoneforcongress.com. There you can volunteer, donate. We're making our final push. We're really going to be starting to target a bunch of ad spaces like YouTube. So I could use any dollars that you have extra to send my way. Ads aren't cheap, and we're on the last few days of the election. Another thing we've been doing, use hashtag voted Whetstone. If you vote for me and you want to share it to the world that you did, I would appreciate it. Try to drum up some hype. So hashtag voted Whetstone.
Fantastic. And I should note a programming note here. Tonight was fun, and I enjoyed talking to you, and I enjoyed being the person to ask the questions. However, Sunday, we are having another Progressive Indiana Network virtual town hall, and you, the viewer, get to ask the questions. So join us 7 p.m. on many of these same online channels to ask the questions yourself. You can see there is a QR code right there on that graphic on the screen. There is a web form. You can submit questions ahead of time, or, for example, if you cannot join us and still want to have your question asked, you can submit that there. But we will be on Facebook Live, on YouTube, and at progressiveindiana.net, taking your questions live this coming Sunday night. So until then, John, thanks for joining me tonight on the Who's Left Podcast.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, thank you for having me. I can't wait to talk to you again on the 19th.
All right, fantastic. Stick around backstage. Let me say goodbye to the fine folks, and I will say goodbye to you in a few minutes.
Will do.
Thank you, sir. All right, folks, that was John Whetstone, candidate for Indiana's 4th congressional district there, a wide swath of the state from Martinsville all the way up to Newton County there in northwest Indiana. You got Lafayette, Martinsville, Crawfordsville, Zionsville, Avon. I don't want to leave anybody out. Anyway, join us again Sunday night, 7 o'clock for that virtual town hall. And of course, earlier that same day, you will find me here for Who's Left This Week, Indiana's only unapologetically progressive Sunday morning politics show. We'll talk about the week's top stories from U.S. and international news to what's going on here in Indiana and how all of it is interconnected. That is at 10:30 a.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook Live, and of course at progressiveindiana.net, where you can support Who's Left and the wider project with a paid subscription if you're able. This independent media project relies solely on the generosity of kind patrons like you to make this information available for free to everybody. Again, the website is progressiveindiana.net. We could also really use a follow on social media at Progressive Indiana Network on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel at the same handle, and over on Blue Sky and TikTok, the handle is PIN Indiana. You can find me on most of your social media sites at Who's Left. That's HOOS Left. And you can direct message me anywhere with feedback, tips, ideas, and concerns. Or, hey, email me directly at scott@whosleft.us. Finally, please forward the show to a friend. Have them pass it on to. Let's keep building this project and a truly democratic state, one conversation at a time. Until the next one, this has been the Who's Left Podcast. I'm Scott Aaron Rogers. Love each other, Indiana.